I got the breakers for the heat pump installed in the panel. So this is going to be, this 40 amp breaker right here is for the outdoor unit, and this 15 amp is going to basically run everything else. The controllers that are here, the circulators here, the glycol feeder, and all 3 fan coils upstairs we tied into that. Sounds like a lot of stuff, but I think total I'm going to be less than 500 watts on the whole circuit. If everything was on all at the same time. So this is the power wires for the outdoor unit. That's going to be going through where this plywood is. I've got my disconnect mounted to the wall. I've got my surge protector mounted to the disconnect box. I've got 3/4 conduit running up to the machine. This was an existing knockout. They had a grommet in there. I'm not really sure what they intend that you would put through the grommet. There's this cover is on here. It says, it's labeled power supply. This thing has like a couple holes, knockout sort of things in the bottom. Frankly, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with this. I want my power coming in inside a conduit so it's all protected. There's no way to put a conduit fitting onto here with any sort of security. This is just plastic. So I use the existing hole. I put my 3/4 conduit fitting in there. I ran the wires up, coming around this plate, and then tucked into here. So they're connected. This right here, this is a digital control cable that's going to go to the controller inside. So I need to run another, probably a 1/2 inch conduit with some of the controls. And I need to read the manual, but I'm not sure if I need to connect my pump, my main circulator pump here, or if that happens, I have a different controller inside. So I got to figure out which spot to connect. I'm pretty sure it goes here, but nonetheless, I'm working on the main power right now. I'm gonna have my power from the breaker coming into this bottom knockout right here. And that'll connect into the disconnect box. And then I think that'll do it for my main supply. I have all the power wires run. We'll just pop this up here. There we go. I've got my pump, my main circulator pump wired in. That's a 240 volt pump. On high speed, it'll pull about 200 watts. So not much power, but it'll be controlled through here. So all that is running back to my shutoff. I'm just gonna loop these, the pump wires through and send those inside. Where I'm trying to decide what to do right now is I have this wire, which is a digital control wire, 4-conductor, and I'm gonna have another 2-conductor control wire that needs to come into here and get plugged into the board right there. So what I'm trying to decide is, do I cut a hole for another conduit connection? I have some 1/2 inch conduit. So I was thinking I might run this in 1/2 inch conduit like through here, and then inside, and then I'll just put a junction box inside where it'll just come out of the conduit, and then I can run it to where I need to go. Or it seems like it's kind of made for this, to run this wire through here, but my second control wire is not going to fit. in this little hold down. And I don't know, I'm just not really a fan of this, just the way this looks. I don't know, you just have this wire hanging out here and you gotta zip tie it to, you know, your conduit or something. It's just not as clean as I would like. The other thing is I'm not entirely sure if this is outdoor, like UV rated. I looked it up, it's called AVVR type wire. So I might just run it in the conduit, put another hole in this thing. It'll just make it nice and neat. Then I don't have to worry about it. I decided to cut a new hole. I'm using this knockout punch. So you just drill a 3/8 hole. I used a step bit right there. And then you just tighten that down and it'll punch the perfect knockout size. Nice and clean, no sharp edges, no chips everywhere for the most part. So I got that in. That'll run right along here. I think I'll zip tie it to the other one. And then we'll come in over here. This white cable needs to go in there, but it's got this connector crimped onto the end. Oh, come on. There it goes. That technically fits through the conduit, but not very well. So I think I'm gonna have to, probably gonna cut it, you know, back here somewhere. And then, I don't know why it won't focus. I'll cut it back here somewhere and I'll have to solder this back together once I'm inside. There, little 6-inch whip. That'll give me enough to solder it back together. And I can feed this through the conduit and get it inside the basement. Ah, I hit a screw from the inside. Where I started to drill here is way too close to the edge. I need to be more like 6 inches in, maybe 4 inches down, so like somewhere over here to make it inside. So I don't know what I was hitting there. I guess that's the window frame. So I'm gonna have to fill that in with something, but for now, we'll try again over here. So I'm gonna tie this back, I think. There, we'll go to the wall, we'll go in. All right, I'll get the 3/4 from inside and send that out. thought I was all set, but I don't have another conduit fitting for this box. So I gotta get one, and then I can continue, but I guess that's gonna stop me for a little bit here. This is coming out of the panel. This is just a junction box. I've got the zone controller wired in. I have the heat pump controller wired in. I have the wire for the circulator pump running, and that's connected and wired in over here. I have the feed for my outlets connected. Outlets are wired. This is my glycol feeder plugged in. I just decided to put 4 there just so I would have extras. You know, if I needed to run a pump or, you know, light, whatever. Always good to have extra outlets. So those are there. I put this junction box here with another feed, and this is going to be where the fan coils all tie in. This box is getting a little full. So the 3 fan coils will come into here and will all be wired to this feed here, which is all connected to the same thing. I have 2 fan coils ready to be wired. The 3rd one I still need to get into place and figure out where that's going to go. The other thing I did is over here. I've got this junction box in place where my this is my 1/2-inch conduit with my signal wires that comes through. So I put the junction box just to terminate the conduit. This is the control wire from the Arctic heat pump controller, which I won't be using except for initial startup and getting everything set up. And then I think you actually need to disconnect that so that the more advanced HBX controller you know, can do this proper controls. But anyways, I need this still. So this is the main control cable, and then I'm going to have a tank temperature sensor and the remote on-off signal from the HBX controller are also going to be through here. I've got the electrical out here done. So you can see my feeds coming out of the building, well, power and signal. I've got my disconnect, outdoor disconnect with my surge protector, all wired into the heat pump here. So for the most part, the wiring outside is done. I still need to feed a couple signal wires through the 1/2-inch conduit, but that'll happen. I can do that from the inside. This is a multiple, you know, adjustable speed pump, where basically I'll have this set to essentially hold a constant pressure. And then I have valves, zone valves, for each of my upstairs units. I have 2 temperature sensors in the well in the tank here. So there's basically a tube that goes into the tank. This is what that sensor looks like. Basically just stick it in there and it'll sense the temperature down in there. The reason I have 2 is because technically I have 2 controllers. This one with the short wires will get connected to the HBX 600 controller, which is going to actually be doing most of the work. And this one with the jacket is going to be connected to the Arctic controller that came with the heat pump. Basically, this is the Arctic controller, and this just this turns the heat pump on the first time, and you just set the limits really high. So essentially this is always calling for heat or cool, depending on which mode you're in. And then this HBX controller actually does the work of turning the heat pump on and off as appropriate. So they both need the tank temperature in order to function. So I've got that in the well. I haven't done the wiring yet. I started to get my zone valves wired in, so I put this junction box here. So the way this is going to work is each fan coil from upstairs has a contact, and when it calls for heat, it'll close that contact, and I will connect the fan coil to the zone valve. So when the fan coil calls for heat, it'll close the zone valve contact, and then the valve will open and allow flow to go through. These are 4-wire zone valves, which means I have 2 wires for the contact to basically open the valve, and then 2 wires are called the end switch. When the valve is open, it'll make the connection on the end switch. So I'm going to wire all of my end switches in parallel, and that will go back up and over here to my pump controller, where I've wired that into zone 1 as the thermostat, and then I've got my circulator, this guy, wired into that zone 1. So what's going to happen is if any of the zones upstairs call for heat, it'll start the circulator once the zone valve is open. I have all my control wiring done on the outside. I got to make some connections inside the house, but let me just show you what's going on here. So this wire is the control wire for the heat pump controller itself, and that's wired in right there. That connects to the board. I had to add, now if you were just to run this out of the box, that's all you would need. Well, partly you need the tank temperature as well, but I'm using an HBX ECO-0600 geothermal controller for better control of this. And so with that, I need to run a couple additional control wires. So like I just said, you need to connect tank temperature, which is this one right here. There's a sensor that goes in the thermal well on the tank, and that connects there. And that's used for the factory controller. I'm actually running 2 tank temp sensors, one for the Eco controller and one for this controller. I have 2 additional control wires here. One of these is a remote on-off, so that the Eco controller can basically tell this unit to turn on or off as needed. And then the other one is wired into the reversing valve output of the controller, so that the Eco controller can tell this unit you should be in heating or cooling mode. Let's see, this connector right here, that came with the unit. It was jumpered together, kind of like this one. I just cut the jumper and put my connections on here. And then let's see, this blue one right here, that bottom one, that's the other connection I made. This pigtail came with the unit, and I made, let's see, these connections down here. So with that, my control wiring is complete. I'll close this all up, and then all the rest of my work is inside. This is the power feed for the fan coil in the kitchen. That needs to be brought into this box here and tied in. I think that's the last connection in this box, so I can make these connections and close that up. This is the control wire from the kitchen fan coil. That needs to come into this box and connect to the appropriate zone valve. And then I just got this little guy. This is a energy monitor, basically, a little data collection system. So it's got measures the voltage of your system, and it's got some current clamps to measure current from various things. So I bought 2 sets of current clamps. One set will measure the 240 volt feed going to the heat pump itself, and then the other one will measure everything else, basically, whatever is coming out on this wire here, and is feeding the controls, the circulator, pumps, all that stuff. So I got to wire this in. I'm probably not going to get all the sensors wired. I got to do some outside work mounting an outdoor temperature sensor into this. That's the other thing. I'm going to monitor. I'm going to get supply and return temps and outdoor temps wired into this as well. And that way I will have the ability to directly measure coefficient of performance of the heat pump versus temperature. So it's not necessarily, required, but I'm mostly curious, and I want to see how this is working and be able to make sure it's performing properly, but also measure the economics and make sure that, see if this is, is it saving us money? Is it costing us money? Could I operate this differently to be more cost effective or more efficient? So that should help us there. So this is my outdoor temperature sensor for the outdoor reset control on my heat pump controller. So I've got that wired in. These are basically convert a thermistor signal, a resistor signal, basically, for the temperature for my supply and returns. Converts that into a current signal that the data collection can read. So those are mounted. I can close this box. These wires are my current transducers, which currently are just dangling, but I need to open the panel, and I'm going to feed them through the side of the panel over here somewhere and get them in there. And then 2 of these will get connected to the blue guys, and then 2 of these will run outside and connect with this thing, which is another temperature and humidity transmitter. So I'm going to have redundant outdoor temperature sensors, but the reason for that is because this takes a current signal. I can modify this to take a voltage signal. This basically takes the raw resistance, I believe. I didn't want to potentially have this controller get the wrong signal if I split it off. So this thing was pretty cheap. It was like, I don't know, $12 or something. And it measures humidity as well, which I don't really care about, but nonetheless, that'll be mounted outside, and I'll have temperature and humidity coming into my data collection as well. The fan coils get 120 volt AC, and then they send a signal down through some of these wires. When it calls for heat, it sends the power through, and it will energize the actuator. So here we go. I'm going to flip the breaker, and hopefully nothing dramatic happens. Okay. It's calling for heat from zone 1. And so I need to go upstairs and see what's going on up there. But that must mean that the fan coil units are calling for heat right now. Or I've messed up my wiring. So we'll go check that out. I did a little digging into why my controller is not powering on, and basically I don't know. I have 120 volt power here on the, as you can see, line, neutral, ground. So I've got 120 volts there, and it's still not turning on. I checked all over. I can't find any switch, like on switch. I can't find any fuses. So I wrote to the company to see if maybe they can help me out. This is still under warranty, so if it is bad, I don't know, if maybe they'll send me a new one. We'll see. But that's kind of disappointing, but hopefully I can get that resolved. Got 120 volts on line and neutral. No screen. It's the empty spot where my HBX controller used to be. It was not powering on. I believe I showed you that. I went back and forth with HBX a few times. Here it is dismounted. They were unable to figure out what was going on. I sent them a couple videos, and basically just it isn't working. So they're going to warranty it. Going through, put labels on all the control wires so I know where to hook these back up. It's a bummer that this doesn't work, but I'm glad they're going to warranty it, and you know, hopefully the next one is functioning. I just got the replacement heat pump controller installed. Let's see if it powers up. Ah, yes. That's excellent. That is different than the other one where it didn't do anything. Nice. And I'm reading, I mean, these aren't, my tank temp is basically the ambient air temp in my basement right now, which feels about right. And outdoor temp, that seems spot on. It's about 40 degrees and raining today. Sweet. That's excellent. Now I can kind of proceed with this. Very good. Okay, I got it connected. You can tell by that little Wi-Fi symbol up in the corner there. I realized the issue that I was having is I was typing my password in all caps. The way this works is it's like a scrolling thing, and I was in the caps, and you just have to keep going through the symbols and you get lowercase. So anyways, it's connected. It says server. I don't know if you saw that. So now I can actually set it up from my phone. It's going to be easier than navigating on this little screen. So I'll do that from my phone to get it all configured the way I want.